I move for the confirmation of the minutes. Members? Thank you very much, Member Jackson, and seconded by Member Sibley's. Yes? Any corrections on the minutes, members? No? All right. Well, after. You're correct. All right. Well, matters arising from the minutes. You'd like to say something? Good. Go ahead.
Yes, Chair. At the last meeting, I note the expression that was made by Member Jackson and also all the members that were present. For the record, I want to correct something that was said.
What? Go ahead.
And in fact, I responded to the letter that was sent to me. So I got a call, Chairman, and I also got a message on my phone asking me to confirm whether or not I would be able to attend the meeting. I responded. So it is not correct to say that members didn't respond, because I responded. I responded and I submit my apology. I said I would have loved to join the meeting online, but in my constituency, where I was because of the aftermath of burial, there's no internet. No internet. There's no electricity. We are just getting back electricity in Clarendon Northern. So it is not correct to say that the clerk or members of staff would have reached out, and I don't, based on what is in the minutes.
No, but before you go further, if you look on the front page, an apology was tendered on your behalf.
No, I'm talking about, Chair, with regards to the body of the what was said.
What specific area so we can follow?
You understand, Chair?
Or what specific area so we can follow?
Said page 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to it. Can you give me a minute, please? I'm not finding it now, Chairman.
All right. If anything, we can bring it back in matters.
But I will bring it back after.
Any other business if
right,
it
but
needs to be.
Chairman, I just want to just say that the sentiment expressed is not one that I find favor with. In that, Chair.
No, but
let me just,
no.
it's matters arising, Chair. Can you allow me
yeah,
to?
but you're speaking about sentiment expressed.
Chair.
In the, hold on, member, coming out of matters arising from the minutes itself. We are not able to establish those sentiments in the minutes.
Sentiment is from page 2. All that was said on the challenge with convening meetings, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Those sentiments expressed. Chair, the record will show that member Dwight Sibley's attendance to meeting is excellent. I just want to just put that on the record. And persons can ask for those records. I do not shy away from meeting. Thank you, Chair.
I wish to comment because the member makes reference to page 2 and all that is said there, and the minutes captured comments that I made in that regard. And I will just reiterate that I stand behind those comments made in the meeting.
All right. Noted, member.
And just further, lastly, to say, the comments did not specify individual members.
Yes. So
It
that's
spoke
why,
for
that's why I want to lay this to rest. All right. We heard the comments from both, and I think that we should just move forward with the item 6, which is new business, which is to review the review of Hurricane Beryl recovery relief. I think the nation will be more appreciative of that than where we're going. Can you ask all the agencies to comment, ministry and agencies to comment, please? Good morning, everyone. Let me welcome you to a sitting of the PAAC and hope that everyone went through burial safe, yourselves and your family. Today, what we're attempting to do is we have called most of the agencies, ministries and agencies that has responsibility for the recovery from burial. I know some persons are asking why I called so early. The Parliament itself is going off on summer break. And also, announcements have been made on budgeted amounts, really, to deal with the recovery. So what we want to do is just really to get an understanding of roles and responsibilities and where we are now in the recovery to hurricane burial. So we're going to approach this by giving the permanent secretaries an opportunity, or heads of agencies an opportunity to give an overview of their responsibility and budgeted amount. And we'll take each after the other, and then we'll open the floor for questioning, because we don't expect to roll this meeting over into another day. So we have a tight schedule for the PAAC, and then at another time we will notify when we ask you to come back to give a further, more fulsome report. All right? So let me welcome the permanent secretaries and their supporting team, and that we will have a productive meeting. Pierre Spence, since you're closest to me, and then we'll start with you, and then we'll ask Pierre Risden and others too. All right? So you can proceed.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the PASAC committee. Morning to my permanent secretary colleagues and the teams that are here. And for my team in particular, Mr. Chairman, from the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. We are pleased to update the PAAC and where things are at. Of course, as we update the PAAC, we hope that what we'll do is get greater level of support for what has been a very difficult period, difficult time in trying to organize and support the national recovery from the impact of hurricane burial that hit us so badly, devastating the farming communities across the country, mainly in the parishes of Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and Clarendon being the ones that have been severely impacted. But general damages across parishes such as Portland, St. Thomas, St. Anne, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and Hanover. Those parishes are were impacted to a lesser extent. For Portland and St. Thomas in particular, the banana industry there, banana farmers, they were totally wiped out. And so for those parishes, that would be the major area of impact. But just to give a general overview and the level of damage, and then to get into what we are doing with regards to the recovery, I'll be very quick, Mr. Chairman. Now, at the ministry, we have established a hurricane recovery task force. It's chaired by one of our very senior officers, Mr. Michael Price, senior strategist within the ministry, and it's supported by a number of agencies to include the JAS, RADA, the NIC, all our critical agencies that are forefront to providing support to the agriculture and fisheries and mining space. And so the committee was established immediately following the hurricane. But in addition to that, we have our established within the ministry well set up emergency response system that includes team members But to specifically deal with the impact of Hurricane Beryl, we established a task force. Now, the task force is responsible for coordinating the efforts because following the impact of the hurricane, a number of private sector companies have reached out. A number of agencies are coordinating and trying to support what is happening. And so with all of that happening, we need a coordinating center to ensure that things are planned, accounted for, and executed properly. The officers across the island that we have available to support the assessment ranges from our data officers, data collection officers within the ministry. We have the extension officers across the parish that are assigned to RADA. We have outreach and training officers on the agencies like the Banana Board. We have compliance and extension officers within the NFA. And so in a combined way, we have about 230 officers that are at the forefront, who would have been out there relating. The first thing we did, apart from establishing the committee, we also begin to put out the information so that the farmers and fishers and miners who were impacted can reach us. We publish in all media the full complement of extension officers, both within the agencies as well as within the ministry. We establish a hotline so that even if an extension officer is not out there, as soon as someone is able to get to a phone, because we understand the communication challenges, they can still reach the hotline at the ministry. We establish a customer care center, our customer service center, and we put that number out there, and we publish both in social media as well as in the print space and radio land, the names, phone numbers, email addresses, and the location of the extension officers. They would have gone out with the support from their directors and managers and would have conducted the assessment. And what we are seeing in terms of the impact on the agriculture sector for areas such as crops, livestock, and agriculture infrastructure, we're seeing direct losses of something like $5.4 billion. $6.5 billion, impacting some over 48,000 farmers, approximately 23,040 hectares. Several animals, over 323,000, and of course, importantly, yes, animals. The exact figure is 323,412 and counting. And for greenhouses, we're talking about 688,000 square foot of greenhouses being impacted, valuing $856 million so far. 688,000 square foot of greenhouses, valuing $856 million so far. So with that kind of damage, Mr. Chairman and committee members, we are seeing that the impact on the agriculture sector. We have assessed the value of replacing all of that at this point at about $9.8 billion. The value of replacing all of that. Now, the value of the damage is different from the value of replacing. So, just trying to make that distinct point. That $6.5 billion would have contemplated some $5.4 billion for crops, livestock, farm infrastructure. In addition to that, it would have contemplated an additional billion or so for the fisheries sector alone. And what we're talking about there is the volume of traps and fishing nets, and some boats were damaged, some of the infrastructure on the beach. And so that's what we're talking about that would have added to that in order to make it up to the 6.5. In addition to that, we calculated the public gardens division separately and added to that. Now, the public gardens division is responsible for scenic spaces and public gardens such as Holland. And that level of damage that you saw in the Bamboo Avenue there to fix that.
Are farm roads included?
Farm roads.
In
Yes.
which category?
In rather infrastructure.
Crops and livestock?
Yeah. No.
No.
You have crops, livestock,
Yeah.
infrastructure.
What was the figure for infrastructure? I didn't hear that.
All right, for infrastructure, where is that listed? All right. So I gave you 4 greenhouses. For farm roads, we're looking at 62.8 kilometers and 62.8 kilometers so far. $165 million worth of damage. Farm buildings, 217,800 square foot.
Go again.
$85 million worth of damage. Unfortunately, one of the RADA offices was badly damaged, the roof. So that would be 8,350 square feet, and that would be about 30 million. On-farm irrigation systems, 35 hectares, and that's about $35 million in terms of damage. The NIC irrigation network, I'm giving you infrastructure, Mr. Chairman, across the system. NIC infrastructure network, broken mains, the solar equipment, and so that was damaged. That's over $400 million worth of damage there. And I gave you the greenhouse earlier on. So that's for the infrastructure damage. Now, Mr. Chairman, so we would have indicated the damage and that we have the extension officers out there. What has been happening since is that we have compiled and continue to compile a comprehensive listing of the farmers and the specific impact that each would have, how the storm would have impacted each of them. And through the task force, we are reaching out to garner the support. Already from the ministry itself, from our resources that we have in-house, while we, those big figures that you hear me call 6.5 and 9.8, I have a submission in my hand. This is a cabinet submission with those figures that we are reaching out to the Ministry of Finance in order to assist us. From in-house, we have committed 700 million right away in order to move to support the farmers. That 700 million is broken out with 150 million that will go directly to the members of parliament, targeting those areas that are impacted. Of course, with the lion's share going to Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and Clarendon. That will be issued through RADA. The 500 million is broken out in support. Crops, this includes now vegetables, banana and plantain and other crops such as yam and coffee and those root crops, $210 million for immediate support to recovery. Vegetables being 90 million, banana and plantain 40 million, and other crops 80 million. The other crops there include the yam, coffee, cassava, and those kinds of things. Livestock 60 million, livestock infrastructure 26 million, fisheries 29 million, fertilizer 30 million. This fertilizer is in addition to some fertilizer that we had lined up for distribution from the Moroccan fertilizer. We have redirected it also to this effort right away. And so this fertilizer that we have targeted for expenditure here, in addition to some of what was left over for further distribution from that Moroccan fertilizer, will go immediately into that. Irrigation infrastructure, 30 million. Greenhouse infrastructure, 45 million. Land preparation and clearing, 50 million. And the farm roads, 70 million. That brings it to 570. In addition to the 150 million that is going to go directly to the MPs, that make it up to 700 million that we would be releasing immediately. Now, continuing with the response, we have had to invoke the emergency procurement system. We have done that. And I think right now as we speak, seed planting material and some chemicals are being dispatched, have been dispatched to the different extension zones, especially in those impacted communities. Already, seed distribution and other input have started because some of our private sector companies that are working with us have actually started giving out stuff to farmers in the areas already. We have a detailed layout here, which you will see in the report that we have sent to you. We have sent you a copy of this report. I haven't seen it yet. Well, it's on its way, and you'll get that. I can give you this one that I have here as soon as I'm through, Mr. Chair. But it details what we have gotten so far, and some of the companies that have started out there. Some of the major broiler companies, they have actually distributed birds and feed already. And similarly, some have distributed seeds in order to get farmers going. Today and tomorrow, areas in Manchester rather have the details. They will be distributing seeds to farmers in Manchester, in St. Elizabeth, and in Clarendon. Correct? Right. So that has started. So we are managing the pledge that we have gotten from different companies. The ministry has prepared a comprehensive listing of things that are needed, because one thing for sure is not only the farms that were affected, the farm families themselves and their own homes were also impacted. And we have gotten commitment from especially the mining side, which was not hit so badly, to provide aggregate building material in order to help the agriculture farmers with their home and recovery and other farm infrastructure. JBM has committed 20 million. The task force has indicated that is best put to support the NIC to get back all the pumps up and running, because in St. Elizabeth, for example, only one of the pumps, and that is now being supported by a generator, is up and running. They working closely with the JPS, but it's just not moving at the rate. And so the strategy is immediately following the hurricane damage, whatever can be salvaged from the field need to be salvaged. That in terms of reaping. We had encouraged before that person should reap what is close to maturity, so we can have food sustainability and the farmer can recover something. That which is young and growing needs support immediately to continue to grow. For bananas, you have to clean up the field and fertilize in order to get a quick recovery. It is a similar situation for most of the crop production areas, but they need water. That's a major problem. If any appeal that can be made here, in addition to more resources, is to see if we can ask the JPS to pay special attention to our irrigation infrastructure across the island in order to get power back to those infrastructure. Over in Manchester, luckily, all the wells over there, they are up and running. Over in Clarendon, we are not so lucky, but St. Elizabeth is most devastated. So we need greater support in Clarendon and in St. Elizabeth. So those monies that are coming in, the JBI also has established a fund through which they have put some money and which they are trying to get support in order to assist. Similarly, a number of private sector entities, a range of them, have pledged significant support. And while that is coming in, that is something that we are keen on managing through the task force. For the fisheries side of things, Mr. Chairman, the officers, like I said, are out there. One thing we were able to do quickly is to get the fuel stations back up and running. So fishers who are able to go to sea were able to provide fuel because we supply them with the marine fuel. And we have now put together a comprehensive database in terms of the specific damage that each fisher suffered. And we have established contracts with the companies that would be supplying the wire material and all of that. We're just waiting on the resources now in order to execute. They have established a formula that they use to determine, you know, the 20%, 30% put back to where you were of the loss that you experienced. And so that's what they're doing, that assessment, but the contracts are lined up. It's just a matter of getting those resources now to execute that. So, Mr. Chairman, let me just say that...
in closing.
Huh? In closing. Let me just say, you know I'm closing. Let me just say that the ministry, in a very comprehensive way, has coordinated a response, apart from the team that we have established. But most importantly, we have, the officers are out there. We think we have a good handle on the damage. We think we have a comprehensive reach in terms of the farmers, fishers, and miners who are impacted. And I think we're at the stage now where we have started distribution of resources. Is just to continue to manage that.
Which will start this week.
Started already, but it will continue this week. You should be seeing it in your constituency.
Yeah?
Today,
okay.
Tomorrow.
All right.
So that's where we are in a nutshell, Mr.
Right.
Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Resident.
Morning, Chairman. Morning, members. I have a much leaner team here with me than my two colleagues. So to my left is Miss Jacqueline Shepherd and Mrs. Dare Williams, who is somewhere around the back, as well as Mr. Jason Anderson. So the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, as many of you would know, is the primary agency responsible for coordinating emergency welfare activities. Under the National Disaster Risk Management Act, there are 7 committees, and the ministry is responsible for chairing one of the national committees, which is the Humanitarian Assistance Committee. So in our role, we distribute relief supplies to victims of disasters, including persons in shelters. We conduct household damage assessments. And of course, if there are any grants that the government will provide to persons so affected, the payment is usually done through us. Now, let me clarify, Chairman, when we say we conduct household damage assessments, we're not doing it putting a cost to the damage. We're looking at the level of damage that has been sustained. So ahead of Hurricane Beryl, we did quite a bit of preparation, even though it came on us early in the season. In executing our role, we do work with a number of other state actors on the ground, such as SDC, Poor Relief, the Adventist Relief Agency, Salvation Army, Red Cross, the municipal corporations, of course, Food for the Poor, to name a few, and other volunteers. So far, in our damage assessments, well, let me go to what we have provided. We have distributed or issued from our central warehouse just under 12,000 food packages, approximately 2,000 tarpaulins, and approximately 2,000 hygiene kits, over 500 cases of water, mosquito nets, detergent, and hand sanitizers. So far, in terms of the assessments conducted, we have conducted damage assessments with, and I'm rounding, Chairman, for ease. We have conducted approximately 8,400 damage assessments for households. Of this amount, 453, and this is data as at Monday evening, all right? Households, approximately. Households have been assessed as of Monday. Of this number, 453 have been assessed as totally destroyed, 3,221 severely damaged, 4,723 minor damage. And as was expressed by my colleague, the areas with the greatest level of damage, or the parishes, I should say, is St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, and Manchester. Yesterday, the minister would have announced a series of measures that the ministry will be implementing to assist households that are affected. But before I move on to that, Chairman, I would like to highlight that in the assessments that have been conducted so far over the past 2.5 weeks since the hurricane, we do recognize that there are persons who may have been missed. There are persons who, when the officers went to visit, were not at home. Even this morning, I got a referral since Minister spoke about someone who was not at home. So we do know that there are cases like that, and they would not have been included in these numbers. So while we assess that we are about 95% complete, it is these cases that are now coming to the fore that we are seeking the collaboration and the support to give us those names so that we can arrange to meet with the person and visit the homes to conduct the damage assessments. Yes, so that's where we are with respect to the assessments. I was moving on to know the assistance that will be provided. So the parish team that has been out there, the multi-agency teams, have been using the opportunity to identify counsel for senior citizens and any other programs that persons potentially are not benefiting but could benefit. Through our assessment tool, which we call the JH Diner, Jamaica Household Damage Impact, Disaster Impact and Needs Assessment Tool, JH Diner. Through the JH Diner assessment tool, based on the questions, we're able to identify persons who would have indicated to us that they have lost their livelihood because of this hurricane. And some of those persons will be targeted for microgrant assistance, through the ministry's rehabilitation grants program. The minister spoke to it yesterday in Parliament. 50 million will be earmarked to assist persons under that program who have been affected. Our social intervention program, where a component of it targets students at the tertiary level, we're looking to assist up to 200 students with grants of approximately 150,000 each. These are tertiary level students from affected households that were severely impacted, Chairman, to assist them with ensuring that they are able to meet their tuition fee expenses. The ministry, based on the decision, has been allocated $1 billion to support persons now who have been assessed as being impacted from the disaster, to assist in their rebuilding efforts. Let me say recovery and rebuilding efforts. So we are projecting that by the time we're completed, we should see approximately 8,700 households being impacted. And from 8,700, that's what we're projecting. We're projecting 500 households being totally destroyed. So far, the number is 453, and I gave the numbers previously, 3,221 severely impacted and 4,723 with minor damage, which is approximately 8,400. So we are budgeting and projecting for 500 totally destroyed and 3,300 and another 4,800. I don't have the maths worked out in front of me, but we're looking at all told approximately 8,700 households to assist with some level of support. The persons whose houses have been totally destroyed will receive a grant of up to 400,000. Those who have been severely impacted will receive a grant of 150,000, and those who have received minor damage will receive a grant of up to $50,000. Chairman, we are working with a number of partners, so Food for the Poor, for example, and a number of other corporate sector entities have been helping quite a number of persons in their rebuilding effort. So we know quite a bit of that has been going on, and for those persons, we express our appreciation for their support. And I think that is it that I would want to report at this time. No, before I go, I have to acknowledge and mention the partners that we're working with, UNICEF and World Food Program. World Food Program is working with us to build our resilience in many of our parish offices. With the impact on electricity and the telecommunication infrastructure, we were not in a position to communicate as we would have liked to with many of our parish offices. Many of them do not have generators to power their offices. So we are investing, with the support of World Food, some smaller, easier to deploy temporary use generators, because we do have the rest of the season. And if the forecast holds true, we may actually have another event later in the season. So we're trying to build our resilience in the short run, while in the long run, we look to see how we can put our offices, especially those that we own, on full generator power. So World Food has been helping us with that. Through their collaboration, they will also be implementing a cash assistance program for 2 months to support some of the worst affected families, and they will be identifying certain vulnerabilities within the household, because the monies that they will provide will not be able to cover everybody. And the intention is to look at the vulnerabilities and the impact and select some persons who will receive assistance over a 2-month period each month, to help them to ensure that they're able to meet their basic needs. That is World Food Program. And with UNICEF, we're in dialogue with UNICEF. UNICEF is looking to provide additional support to pregnant and lactating women and families with small children. For now, it is being targeted through the PATH program in those 3 worst affected parishes. But I believe as the discussions unfold further, we may identify other means and modalities for support. And that's where I will leave it, Chairman. I will await any questions.
Okay, thank you.
The data, some of what you gave, are they at hand that you could just...
Sorry, I'm not hearing
The
you. The
data
listing,
I can get this copied for you to give it to you. Yeah. This was the minister's presentation.
yes, it was in
So,
the
yeah.
minister's
So
presentation yesterday, which
not
was
all members get
circulated.
copies, so I will just share it with the members.
Yes.
Yeah. It was also emailed. Yes, it was also.
Yes, and I believe you were here yesterday. It was circulated.
It was emailed, so you can share the email also.
Us and I greet my fellow colleagues as well as all the members gathered here. We're from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and we're focusing specifically on the efforts of the NAA, as we were asked. So my name is Arlene Williams, and with me, we have the Chief Technical Director in the Ministry, Mr. Yannick Watson, as well as from the NAA, the focus today is on them, Mr. Everton Hunter, who is the CEO, and Mr. Varden Downer, our Senior Director, Project Implementation. We also have Mrs. Judith Rob Walters, who is the Principal Financial Officer, Mrs. Kadian Rose Smith, our Senior Director, Works Policy, Research and Monitoring, and Ms. Monique Gibbs, our Senior Director, Strategic Planning, and Ms. Leandra Trotman, who is the Senior Technical Coordinator in my office. And so, Chair and members, we are happy for the opportunity just to provide you with updates, and we want to say that we give God thanks that even while we note that burial came as a Category 4, we have been spared some great disaster. However, when we look at it, we are seeing that in terms of the widespread devastation, severely impacting parishes, for example, mainly in the low-lying areas, and so the roads in those parishes, such as Portland, St. Mary, St. Anne, Clarendon, Kingston and St. Andrew, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth were most severely impacted. And so the National Works Agency has reported that currently access has been achieved to more than 99% of affected roads. And Chair, we do have the report here for you, which includes pictures for those persons who are visual. And so out of the 620 roads affected, and we do have them broken down here in our report. For example, in Portland, there were 48 roads affected. St. Mary, 45, St. Anne, 32, Trelawney, 28, St. James, 45, Hanover, 31, Westmoreland, 35, St. Elizabeth, 55. In Manchester, there were 38, Clarendon, 75, St. Catherine, 50, Kingston 34, St. Andrew 37, and St. Thomas 67, for a total of 620 roads impacted across the parishes. We have, however, gone ahead very assiduously, and we have, in terms of one-lane access across parishes, 32 of them have been restored to one lane, 2 lanes, 584. And so the figure, as at present, is 4 roads blocked, and these are in Hanover, where we have 1, Manchester 1, Kingston 1, and St. Andrew 1. So we are saying that other blocked roads were also cleared by the municipal corporations, because we do have a joined-up approach where the NWA is working very closely with them. And we're seeing the preliminary estimate for the damage as being 10.25 billion. So that's a significant sum. However, we must note that this figure does not include the cost for full rehabilitation of the damaged roads, which is currently, and we're currently assessing this. So we are looking at a breakdown, for example, 450 million for reopening of roads, 4.5 billion for improving drivability. This includes the patching works that will be necessary, as well as 4 billion for drainage repairs, including the major gullies, and 1.3 billion for retaining walls. And as I said, Chair, we do have a copy of the report for you and the members that you can peruse in greater levels of details. What have we done since the post-Hurricane Beryl national cleanup? Cabinet has recently approved 1.3 billion for national cleanup to be executed by the NSWMA as well as the NWA. And so it continues to be a very joined-up effort. And the Ministry of Health and Wellness, too, will also be involved in addressing health concerns, such as the mosquito-borne diseases. And then efforts will also target areas needing debushing, which is a responsibility of the NWA, and pruning to protect electrical infrastructure in collaboration with the Jamaica Public Service Company. So the works have started in earnest, and as I've updated, many of the blocked roads have been cleared, over 99%. And Sir E.G. Hunter is here, and he will be able to address any nitty-gritty details that you will need, Chair. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Not quite ready for Mr. Hunter yet, but yes. Members, you have heard the reports from the permanent secretaries and their departments and agencies that they have responsibility for. So I open the floor to any questioning. All right, so Member Jackson and then
Thank you, Chair, and good to see our friends on the other side. Some would rather be on this side. I don't know why the PS is responding the way that he did. But I'll start with you, Agriculture. Thanks for the information provided. Just a few questions. You have outlined in terms of the extent of the damages so far, and no doubt some of the responses that would be forthcoming. A couple of them I want to get a little detail on. The last one I'll start with first you mentioned was the irrigation system and the challenges you have with the power. Have you provided a schedule of your critical areas where power supply is for the JPS to respond to? So they can...
you can use your mic.
Yes. So the reason I ask is that you learn some things along the way. they never know. So I just want to verify that they are aware of those critical areas in the agricultural sector, and particularly for irrigation, which needs their urgent attention. Because in as much as I believe we are attending to the residential communities as priorities too, I think simultaneously we can deal with those critical economic infrastructure failings, coming out of the hurricane. So yes, so thanks for that. In respect to the fisheries, those in the fisheries sectors and the losses, how are you going about providing assistance? I'll just provide all the questions and you can give me all the answers after. For those in the fisheries, as an MP too, not just because I have fishing community that will be affected, and particularly places like St. Elizabeth too, no doubt they have quite a bit of fishing villages where fishers lost pots and need support to go back. So I'd love you to comment on that and how those affected persons can access those support which is available. Because quite often these things are announced but people don't know how to, and even as MP I'd love to be able to guide those who are in need. The greenhouse damages, which I did listen and address by Minister Floyd Green a week or so ago, speaking about the extensive damages to greenhouses, particularly in St. Elizabeth. Could you shed some light on how the support for those are going to be provided and the time frame? You indicated 688 square feet of greenhouse spaces, yes, many different separate greenhouses, and over 800 and almost $900 million in damage. Could you just also indicate how those are going to be provided? The how is critical. And same thing would apply for the banana farmers who have had extensive damages, just how the support is going to be provided to them. Those would be for the Ministry of Agriculture. I'll ask for I don't you want me to put those for Ministry of Labor? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I could answer all the questions, but
Thank you, Chair. First, I would like to just thank all the ministries, department, and agency, not for coming here, but for the effort that you have put in this recovery. Mr. Chairman, I am comforted by the fact that subsequent to the hurricane, these agencies were accessible. I was able, when I get the calls like you and other members of Parliament, to assist and in some cases to rescue communities. We got the kind of response. It's just, I can't express how I feel proud, a proud Jamaican, to know that we operated like we ought to. And today, I just want you to express to your teams on the ground that we appreciate you and we appreciate the effort that you have put into it. And so I just want to put that on the record. And I believe I talk for all my colleagues in thanking you. One of the big issues, and it's a question for all PS that are here, is that which the Prime Minister spoke to, and that is accountability and transparency. And he spoke to what will create the atmosphere for transparency and accountability. And that is where it should not be said that one person or persons who ought not to benefit because they suffer no loss, they are getting the benefit. And that one person is not getting the same benefit from different entity. Because the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, you would be giving out care packages and so on. And members of parliament are doing same too. You will be distributing material to assist persons to repair their houses. And farmers will be getting agricultural supplies to assist them and get them back up. How is it that we now prevent this one person getting from different entities the same kind of benefit? Because as member of parliament, I am not informed of what the agency might have given something. You know, I don't know who you would have, Pierce Pence, who you would have given seeds to. Because let me speak for myself, the team on the ground, though they are working, they don't share information with the member of parliament. And we can't say to a citizen who come to us that they don't need help without saying, we understand, and but did you get some assistance from the extension officer? Did you get some assistance from the social worker? As we have on our record that you were given something. How is it that we, as member of parliament, know if we are not? Yes, the duplication of resources. That, you know, how is it that we know? Because when we call for the information, we are refused the information. We are refused the information. And I don't think we are refused the information because of any thing that, you know, the civil servants believe that these are confidential information and they shouldn't share it and so on. So how do we get past that it is not said that John Doe get twice or even 3 times or 4 times? How do we resolve that? The second question, since...
I'm going to ask you to just tighten up because we have a time constraint
yes.
inside there too. Please.
The second question, which I wrote down here on the P.S. Pence, when P.S. Pence was talking, let me just find it quickly. All right, I'll just allow the permanent secretary to answer until I find the question. But I wanted to ask Mr. Hunter a particular question, since we are no longer friends. We are more than friends these days because of something that happened, and we both share in the grief of that person that passed. But Mr. Hunter, with regards to the I know that the St. John to Crosshill, that road that comes on. I spoke to you some time ago, about 2-3 years ago, about it. I was told at that time that in 6 months' time, it was not done yet, but I now understand that it's far ahead where a contract would be issued. During the passing of Hurricane Beryl, that became impassable, and we had to do a quick fix. You know, could we get some commitment to that be speeded up so that it can be done quickly, please? Thank you.
By this. So I'm interested in hearing that. And finally, NWA. I know Mr. Hunter was bracing for this. In constituencies such as mine, where we have the roads that are...
Investment team, they can get in touch with me as well. I can, because the telephone doesn't work in my constituency. They don't work. Once you're in there, ask the Ministry of Labor. Once you're in there, no electricity for weeks. It is not the direct hit of burial that has caused their life to be miserable. It is the...
And you are aware of it, assistance to persons. You send us their names, we'll have the social worker do their investigation and recommendation for an amount to assist persons. Members, let me, on behalf of my staff, say thank you. Thank you that the members of Parliament have recognized the work of the team, who in some instances, especially in St. Elizabeth, themselves were impacted by the hurricane. And they were out there immediately after the hurricane providing relief. So I'm hoping that the news media will carry it, and because sometimes when good is done, we don't recognize. So I'm thankful that the members of Parliament have recognized the work of the ministry. The issue as it relates to duplication, it's a real issue. It's a real issue for us, and I recognize it's even a bigger issue for you. So let me give you an example. So I spoke about us distributing approximately 2,000 tarpaulins, but you would have heard, not just from the government, you would have heard from a number of NGOs, churches, private sector, lots of people who are distributing tarpaulins, right? Tarpaulins are not cheap. They were distributing tarpaulins, and it's quite difficult for us to look on somebody when we have visited their home and say, you don't need a tarpaulin, you got one already. It's very difficult for us, so I can just imagine for you as a member of Parliament is even more difficult. So we do it based on what we see and assess as the need. The duplication, though, with respect to the care packages that we distribute. So the care packages are nice. I'm sure your constituents will tell you that, and substantial. We estimate that what is in that care package is able to feed a family for about maybe 4 or 5 days. If it's a single member household or 2 persons, maybe longer. So the truth is, if you're going to be distributing care packages, I would encourage you to look at, is this family really a family in ongoing need to support? All right? We are mandated from a humanitarian perspective to provide that initial humanitarian support to families. We don't have a problem sharing the data. However, there is such a thing, and I'm being very guarded. There's such a thing now that has further caused us to put up a relook, and that is called the Data Protection Act, right? I have asked the legal officer in my ministry to look at the Data Protection Act because, in principle, we're not against sharing information because I understand you want to ensure that if one person, one benefit, and not one person, 3, 4 benefits, because we want to spread the love, so to speak. However, because, and you mentioned it, Member Morrison, some of the questions that we ask, we are honestly not sure in terms of the Data Protection Act, how much information can we share and what type of information can we share. Something that we have not been doing, which we are now revisiting all of our forms and our procedures because of the Data Protection Act, is a consent from the persons who we're assisting. We are not there yet in terms of that consent with everything that we do. But it is something that we were advised that we need to begin to have persons who we're collecting information on consent to. So, in principle, we're not against it, but there are some other considerations which we are looking at.
Let me ask you a question. You share information with other ministries, though, so that there's no duplication from those ministries? Yeah. Or the SDC, or Ministry of Agriculture, whoever.
To some extent, we have not, and you know, remember, I am going in the annals of my memory, because the last time we had something like this, where we did this kind of national level assistance, we've had localized things, was in 2012, was 12 years ago, when we had Hurricane Sandy. So a lot of things have changed since then.
No, and reason why, and you know, I had that same concern as my colleagues, and I've spoken to, you know, PSs and members of different departments. If it is going to be one join-up government, and in the past I remember that there was a national coordinated effort, a centralized effort. And if it is that the Data Protection Act is going to prevent us from being efficient, then obviously the Parliament will have to look at it if that is so. But at this point in time now, where resources, as the Minister of Finance stood up in Parliament yesterday and said the resources are tight, I would expect that we find the most efficient ways of how it is that we distribute these resources, because what has been mentioned by the members is a real issue. I mean, in my own constituency last week, where I had a resident down for housing assistance, roof. And when I passed that resident's house, I saw a new roof. I had to call my office to find out if she had already picked up from the hardware. And they said, no, the Ministry of Labor already gave her some assistance. No. So those are some of the issues that we have. The $5 million that MPs initially received, constituencies, not MPs, constituencies, is not enough for us to answer all the needs. So where that duplication is concerned, it would be good not only for you, but even for PS Spence. Because if he's issuing seeds in Northwest Manchester, I would love to know, because I'm probably getting the same demand from those same farmers for resources, but it's coming out of the same kitty, right? So this for me is an issue, and we tried to get the Ministry of Local Government here with ODPM, because in the past there was a centralized, organized effort through the ODPM that there's one central collecting point and distribution through the various ministry departments and agencies. In this instance, it's different. So I am sure that there's going to be a shortfall because you'll have some, not that they are not needing, but some families getting multiple times while others are not receiving at all.
Chairman, can I say that the ministry, and let me make it clear, the ministry has not assisted anybody with housing repairs. Let me just say that, right? Because you mentioned a while ago, and I don't want, we reach so many persons, I don't want it to, we have not as yet. We, however, if you recall, I mentioned Food for the Poor, that we work very closely with Food for the Poor. So I am aware that Food for the Poor has done some re-roofing for about, I think, 20, I'm told, persons so far. So maybe they have seen Food for the Poor,
Madam
and Food for the Poor works with us, and they see
but
it
they're
as the
working
ministry.
through the ministry, so let's hope that you are not going back to the same person either. No, but just the greater point of just the information. And I don't want the data that you have collected. What I want to know is those who have benefited so that I can give to someone else with the scarce resources that we have. So if it is that information is not crossing, because I have SDC officers doing the same assessment as the Ministry of Labor in the same area that you have already done an assessment. That is even a waste of human resources. So, the sharing of data is going to be critical so that we can get the farthest reach to those who are most in need. And that I've been hearing from my colleagues in the House itself, on both sides, that is an issue. And I was saying that I wish that the Office of the Prime Minister was here to hear some of the concerns, because this is above your pay grade and ought to be dealt with at that level. But it is a real issue.
Chairman, I want to just add, though, that SDC officers doing assessments, the assessments using the JH Diner are part of the humanitarian committee. So they quite possibly could be working through the same network on the ground,
But they're going
collecting.
to the same individuals that your officers already went to. That's the point I'm making. And the reason why I'm raising it, Madam President, let's use agriculture and even your ministry, your officers in the parish. In Manchester, we have 8 extension officers with 30,000 farmers. They will not reach to all the farmers. And it's a similar situation with the parish office in all parishes. You're understaffed, and when you have a situation like this, they are brought to popping point. So if we are not utilizing the human resources across ministries, departments, and agencies to support each other, then we're running around like chicken without a head. And then months down the road, we are going to hear complaints from citizens that they have not even been assessed because there's duplication across MDAs. So it is our duty is how it is that we improve it. Not just to criticize, but how we can get to improve it. And you mentioned a critical point, the Data Protection Act, because then you are liable, your ministry is liable. But how it is then that we can, somewhat in a state of emergency like this, that we bring all hands on deck, inclusive of the legislation, that will help us to share the information. Member Jackson, go ahead.
Chairman, it's very disconcerting. The point, the issue raised by my colleagues about the duplication points to a deeper, wider issue of national coordination. That's the bigger issue. Disasters, and disasters like hurricane, we know from experiences over the years what are the exposures, what are the likely, very likely outcome after a hurricane. I knew before, for example, in my constituency, some things will blow down. It's the nature of hurricane. You don't want them to go down, but it will happen, especially of the magnitude that was impending. Household damages, damages to houses, the need for food, right, in the short term, couple of days, probably weeks, depending on the extent of the damage and accessibility across the country and so forth. We know from the many experiences we have had in recent times. And therefore, it provides us with the opportunity to make the necessary preparation in terms of coordination that can avoid the very kind of issues we're talking about. Food distribution. I too, as a member of parliament, share the same concern with my colleagues, all of us. Because when I read, for example, 11,697, no, man, that was distributed by the ministry. In the report, I pulled up the ministry. That was it. I called my office while sitting here. Did any come to our constituency? None that we know of. But at the same time, we are trying to prepare some packages for some people based on demand that we have. We have no clue. I used to know from being around for quite a reasonably long time, and will be for a much longer time too, that you have a odd pen, for example. I know when hurricane coming where we call and get the package, but some coordinating entity, right? You can't have multiple agencies and entities in one government doing the same thing. Ministry of Local Government, parish councils, ODPEM, Ministry of Social Security, in his report as stakeholders coordinating. It must have some central coordination, and we all know where to go and what to expect, so that we in turn can inform our constituents, particularly in these distressing moments, how they can access assistance. That's ABC. Not because one is particularly bright, but because experience has taught us that, and it's absent. So, Chairman, that's for me the larger issue. But to drill down a little bit on one of the points, same request of MPs about beneficiaries. P.S., with all due respect, my colleagues, and include myself, is not asking about the spectrum of data on each beneficiary. All we want to know, the list of persons in our community who get a package so that we don't duplicate. So the Data Protection Act, I really don't see, because we're not asking for any information that will pry in the privacy of anybody's individual. It's just beneficiaries, just like on a PART program. I think this is public information. What are the list of, well, for me personally speaking, PS, when the public funds are being spent, it's not a minister's money, it's not an MP's money, it's the public. There's certain basic information that can be provided, while at the same time safeguarding the privacy of persons. But in a case like this, though, where it's a national emergency, and you want to be efficient, you want to be fair and balanced in it, right? I can't conceive, I might be wrong, that if, well, put it this way, somebody in my constituency who get damaged and need help, don't care whether or not the name go on a list to say that they're a beneficiary, because they really need the help, and everybody know, and not because you're hungry, and not because you're beggy, or not because you suffer from a natural disaster. So we have to be very careful we don't stretch this data protection thing.
But remember, I'm going to protect the PS in this one, because we pass the law inside here. No, and I tell you, because basically said that she had checked her legal department. We can't put a law out there and then ask them to break it at the same time.
No, Chairman.
I know that's not your intent, but
No
even
suggestion.
but even for efficiencies, I said there's an Attorney General Department who needs to. But if it is a weakness in the system that we see, then we need to make that recommendation. Yeah, right. So I know that you're.
No, I see your caution.
Yes.
And I won't. The last thing I want to do is to expose the PS legally at all. If she was so exposed, I'm prepared to pick up her legal costs in her defense. I would never want to expose the PS at all. But you see the point I'm trying to convey, PS. So I would just, again, it points to a bigger picture.
There is.
If you're centrally coordinating
Yes.
these things, and there are concerns and issues, we would have ample time to get legal advice and be legally guided as to how you treat with these things. But it's the absence of this central coordinating, where what I was accustomed to in the past, when you have national emergency, all the stakeholder groups sit around the table and all their issues and concerns are put and resolved there. So when they leave the room and go out, everybody is on one page.
I remember it with Hurricane Dean.
Yes, we have done it. That's what grieves me, Pierce. We do some things as if we're just born. We have had the benefit of experience.
All right.
But probably the government need to call upon some experienced people.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think that, or I should say, it is my submission. It is my submission that given the listing of names who benefited from the same system, because we are in the same system, it's one government, right? And given the names, it is my submission that it does not infringe the Data Protection Act, because you're not going behind as to the reason the person was given the benefit. It is not being assessed or is not there for a judgment to be cast on the person. So it is my submission, but I accept you're being cautious in, you said you are going to check the legal department, and I encourage you to do so. But let me just say that this is not going to prevent us from doing what we need to do as first responders to an event. Most of our people are honest. You do find one and two persons who would want to seek to benefit from a system or any loophole within the system. But it would be nice. And so we await your feedback from the thing. But I believe there was some question to P.S. Spence.
Yes.
And I don't want him to forget them as well. So I just reminding P.S. Spence that I had put some questions out. Thank you.
P.S. Resident wants to just make a comment, and then we'll go to P.S. Spence. Go
Yes,
ahead.
I just want to make a comment. Members, please recall that I said I do not have any objection to sharing, right? The information. I was, however, cautioned because of the data protection, which we have asked the legal
That's why I was
department
trying to
look
protect
at.
you, Madam P.S.
Yes, okay.
You wanted to go?
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Member Sibley's. We want to be careful. We need to lay it very squarely here that the government's approach, though not perfect, is certainly not one that we could ever by any stretch call a disjointed one. I believe that for the most part, the efforts are coordinated, because I have not seen 3 or 4 agencies out there handing out food packages at the same time. So when we speak of duplication, for clarity, we are talking about our role as members of parliament having the names. So let's put that clearly right out there, because in terms of, and I believe that even now, the information that is being collected, there must be a greater purpose, which is to make future occurrences, we hope against it, that it can even, the system can even have greater evidence, right, of it being streamlined, of it reaching the right persons. So in the interest of clarity, the government does have very experienced persons at the helm, right, doing a great job. So the duplication is our concern as MPs. There is something else though, Chair. You remember months ago, right in this house, we were concerned about PATH and some of the requirements to get on the PATH program if you have a television, etc. And we were told that those things are now obsolete, right? They are no longer requiring that. When it comes to the distribution of a food package in particular, what informs that? Chair, in my own efforts, when I go out there are homes, like you'd look at the home and you say, okay, this appears to be a nice house. I don't have to leave anything here. But then someone from the household reaches out to you and they would say, MP, leave a package. We need it. So I would just want to caution us when we are talking about those who are in need. It may not be a roof, but when it comes to the food, things are not always what they appear to be. P.S. Arlene Williams, I want to commend you. I like individuals and entities who are able to respond and who are flexible in the face of a disaster. As it pertains water distribution in my constituency, when I reached out to you because there's a requirement for an SDC officer to be there, because there is no electricity in the area of Glengoff that could not fuel the pump at the Sioux River, right? The people were crying for water. The SDC officers were unable to come out at short notice, and you were able to recommend another way that would see to the same efficiency in accountability while the people receive water. Thank you very much for that, and that is the kind of flexibility in government that I appreciate. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead. Not getting away this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think I wrote down the questions, so I'll just attempt to answer them. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining has established a task force, Hurricane Beryl Recovery Task Force, chaired by Mr. Price. He's sitting up there. And it has the agencies that we have on that task force. There are frontline agencies. That task force is responsible for coordinating the effort of those agencies, in addition to the NGOs, our private sector partners that reach out to us, or that we reach out to. So what we seek to do is ensure that even though they want to be at the forefront too, maybe to let their customers know that they're there to support them, we ensure that the coordination takes place through that task force. So there's nothing that goes on out there in terms of agriculture inputs that's being distributed that we are not a part of, or the task force is not on top of it. So it is reported through the task force as a part of the effort from the agriculture space towards the farmers. So far, from one of our private sector entities, in terms of livestock, 50,000 bags of feed have been given out, 67,900 chickens, vitamin packages to support healthy production for the chickens, 370 packages. And so that's just an indication, just an example I'm giving of how detailed we are in terms of knowing who gets what and who is giving what. We have a comprehensive listing of who gets what. One of the first things that this task force was tasked to do is to ensure that we have a comprehensive listing of the farmers, whether it's a greenhouse farmer, crop farmer, those, and the degree of damage that each would have suffered, because we're going to plug that into a formula in order to use that to assist them, right? So that what we're talking about is ensuring that there's equity. So it's a ratio of what damage you have experienced that we're trying to give back a percentage of that. And so we want to be sure that if you are a lettuce farmer, we don't have no lettuce seeds now. There's no lettuce seeds in the country, just to capture that. But the fact is, if you are a lettuce farmer, unless you desire to go back into something else, then we'll be seeking to ensure that you get a certain percentage of your lettuce seedlings or seeds back. So that's what we do to prevent duplication. Now, the members of parliament I mentioned earlier on are getting some support through the ministry. And we intend to share that information with the members of parliament. Yes? Not with the kind of information that we have. It's a simple ministry. Farmers, it's a simple, farmers are simple people. And when I say simple, I mean they just want to get on with the business of farming. Anything that we can do to make sure that it goes more efficiently, you know. And for the kind of money that we are putting out there, for example, through the MPs, we certainly don't want any duplication, because we have to try and reach as much as possible. Remember, we handle also some support through the CDF, which MPs are quite familiar with handling.
Which I have issues with, which I'm going to raise, yes.
Okay. I probably shouldn't have said that, but but the fact is,
I have it written here, so go ahead.
All right,
go ahead,
great.
though.
But the fact is, we too have a little bit of issue, because we believe that some of these funds are not being accessed as efficiently and utilized as quickly as we would like. Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, that might be
To segue
a
into
part
it?
of your constituency. Anyway, all right. So that's how we deal with that. In terms of the questions, let me continue. So from the bottom here, there was something about greenhouse. Where is that greenhouse question? Greenhouse damages. All right. How will this support be provided, and the timeline and assessment of greenhouse damages for constituencies? All right, so for the assessment in the constituency, we have done preliminary work. Work continues. Yes? Can I?
With regards to greenhouse, let me remind you, the question was that we do have persons in our constituency, in my constituency, that got damaged, the greenhouse got damages, but they have not been assessed as yet. As you say, with farmers, they don't wait. As they experience damages, they want to get back up, they want to see what they can do. So I'm asking that the members of parliament, can we reach out and give the information so that we can get these persons, because we are the persons that the farmers reach out to immediately because of the difficulty with phones, because they can't come to our offices. They can't call, but they come to the offices and they are making these complaints to say that they have experienced this, what kind of help they can get. And I know the Ministry of Agriculture have help for them. So that is what the question.
Go ahead.
All right. So regarding the greenhouse damages, I think that was asked by MP Jackson. So I'm coming down the line. But since you raised the point, we have started the assessment in your area, Clarendon North, Kellits, Rock River, up in those areas. Crofts Hill. Yes. Yes. So we have started the assessment in the area. But what I will ask, and I think I have sent this kind of message, and I hope that RADA continues to disseminate, is that all members of parliament, if you can, and we would be very kind enough to provide us with a listing of the farmers that you are in touch with, the kinds of damage. If you want to, any area that you want to highlight in particular, we'd appreciate very much getting that listing. And so that we can cross-reference with what we are doing to ensure that we are reaching everybody. Would really appreciate that. Number two, in terms of greenhouse, we have put together a comprehensive listing of the type of material, having conducted preliminary assessment in some areas, that will be required. And we have reached out to the suppliers of these greenhouse infrastructure. There are about 2 main ones, but a number of smaller ones across the island. Just prior to the hurricane, we had reached out because our instruction to farmers were that they are to remove the plastic, yes, from off the greenhouses. Some did, some still have the frame standing. Some didn't, the entire thing is down. Even for our own facilities, rather, greenhouse facilities, some of them are badly damaged because they just didn't get around to removing the plastic. So when we reach out to the suppliers, some of them were in the process of ordering. So that comprehensive listing that we gave to them, they were able to include it. The timeline for those materials to get into the country now is between 4 to 6 weeks. Mean time has started ticking already, so I think we are halfway there. So in another 3 weeks, that material will be in. I could give you the name of the suppliers, but maybe it's not necessary here. But
yes.
In a short while, we will have that material in order to begin to deal with it. Mr. Chairman.
The parishes of Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth, which are the parishes that are, and you spoke about the banana farmers within Portland, St. Mary. Within those 4-5 parishes, how many registered farmers do we have? And approximately how many have you already assessed in those?
Banana farmers?
No, just
Overall.
in those 5 parishes, yes.
Well, the overall number of farmers that are impacted are 48.
No, that you have already assessed.
Yeah, impacted 48,000 and assessed. You have the breakout for the parishes?
No.
Not necessarily. The bulk of the damage is in St. Elizabeth, but I'm not sure that.
So you have
corresponds
assessed
with the bulk of
island-wide
farmers.
48,000
Yes.
farmers.
Yes.
And how many registered farmers do you have on your register?
256,000.
256,000. All right. And that's why I break it down into those 5 parishes. Yeah. The banana farmers and Clarendon, Portland, St. Mary, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth. Because those are where you had the greatest impact on the southern coast. And that's why I ask, how many farmers within those 5 parishes, and how many have been assessed out of that 5?
All right, so I think we may have to distill this information because what we have here, we have the total number of farmers per parish. But in terms of the total number that have been assessed per parish, I'd not seen that figure here.
And why I'm raising the question is because we give these numbers in generality, and it is up to the capability that you have. And what is being experienced by different ministries that have the responsibility and departments and agencies is just not having enough staff to do it within a particular time that persons, because even when I go through my own constituency, I know the extension officers have been out there, and it comes right back to the CDF. So the Ministry of Agriculture has not yet, up to last week, you said, you just start doing distribution. But the week after, being a member of parliament and you're on the ground, seeing the damage that has been done,
Yes,
especially to the,
responding.
we try to respond. Then you run up in a roadblock. Because when now the list that you send as MP to the RADA office, you're now being told that the officers have to go out there to do the assessment to these farmers before they can get that benefit. Yeah? And those farmers probably would not see an extension officer, because if I'm to use the 8 extension officers to the 35,000 farmers, registered farmers in the parish of Manchester, is one extension officer to 4,000 farmers. So you will never reach to him. But how in a time like this do we get to respond in the shortest space of time? Because the longer it takes on my farmers to get back on their feet, the Ministry of Labour is going to have to go respond, because his family is going to stay hungry for a longer period of time. Inflation will hit us because it takes a longer time for them to get production up and to start reaping, to supply the market. And it's a trickle-down effect or a domino effect that affects us. So how it is then that, you know, and we tend to, and I'm going to use the word generally, as government, start off by saying everyone is guilty of trying to have excess than to how it is that we respond in the most efficient way that we can get everybody up to scratch. Because after submitting my list, yesterday was when I got the okay, and it is 3 weeks since the hurricane. As a member of parliament, I can't take 3 weeks to respond to 40-odd farmers when the ministry has not yet started a wide scale. I hope that when you say that you have no problem in sharing the list, because when they come to RADA, and even without this hurricane situation, when RADA go out into the field and they start assisting some farmers, you have twice the amount that said, then how warm to me, I'm a registered farmer too. Yeah? So we are the first responders, as Member Sibley's keeps reminding. It is how that we get brought in that join-up approach, that we get the efficiency within the system. And that I keep repeating that because we are hamstrung by not having information. And when you start distributing seeds in my constituency, I want to know that first list that I sent in, are those the same beneficiaries of those seeds? So I can give it to someone else who has not gotten assessed. But the issue of when the list from a member of parliament reaches to RADA office, how is that dealt with that we can now respond in the quickest time? Because to tell me that you have to go back out there to verify if this is our farmer, then what is the use of them being registered with RADA if you don't have that data that they are a registered farmer? then you're duplicating your responsibility, really. Instead of having the fact your extension officer going out there to say, oh, we can increase production, he's now going to go check the same person who him check already for him through RADA to get that RADA ID. I'm sure Member Jackson have a RADA ID and he's not a farmer.
No, for the record, I am a registered farmer with RADA, and I am a farmer.
Mr. Chairman, your comments are well received. But let me just say this. I indicated that in addition to the RADA extension officers that are out there, based on this emergency, that it's a number of units that have been tasked with conducting the assessment. That is supposed to increase the efficiency of the assessment. In this scenario, Mr. Chairman, I think
Remind me
my
of those
CEO,
units. Remind me of those units.
the data collection unit in the ministry, yes, they are now a part of that. The AIC officers, the Banana Board Extension and Support officers, our veterinary officers are out there, and the NIC support officers. So what we have done, Mr. Chairman, is we have put a collective together in order to bolster the reach of what the average extension officer would have done. And you perhaps are not, at this point in time, the NFA also have both compliance and extension officers, a large number across the island that have been
How many
used
extension
to.
officers, how many individuals you're talking about right across? I don't expect it to happen within 2 weeks or
So-
3 weeks.
So, typically you have about 200 extension officers.
To
And
256,000
That's
farmers.
That's for RADA,
Yeah.
yes. So remember now, Mr. Chairman, that it's not all areas that are badly impacted.
No, man,
So there's
I
a
understand
cross-mobilization of extension officers from areas that are not badly damaged to areas that are badly damaged. So, and in addition to the others that we are talking about, we are up to 250, 230, 250 persons. Yeah. The other thing about it, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that under the emergency arrangements that we have and the fact that on a weekly and monthly basis we are collecting production data and we are reporting this, because remember too that that's the information that goes into how the agriculture sector performs, that there's need to be doing a whole lot of backtracking. Once you go into a production area, you know the farmers, you get the data. We would have been interacting with these farmers. That's what the RADA people tell me at the task force level. Would have been interacting. So it's not difficult. There's no need
With a small percentage of the farmers.
Yeah, there's no need for us to be running back and forth for the kind of re-verification that you're talking
And
about.
this is where I want us, the efficiency
Yeah.
of. So
Yeah.
I would beg of you, and I speak on behalf of my colleagues in the parliament here, let's see how it is that we can, we are using our CDF on top of what you're doing, how it is that we can streamline everything.
Agreed.
To make it more efficient, that we can get the farmers back on their feet in the shortest space of time. Because, as you said earlier, they are not waiting. If you go up into the hills of Huntley, there are tractors up there plowing, and I see sweet potato slips already in the ground. And the request from those same farmers to me is fertilizer. So how it is that we respond, seeing that they're making the effort to get back into production in the shortest space of time. That for me, coming out of this meeting, is how we can efficiently respond to the needs of our people. All right?
Agreed, Mr. Chairman.
Out of that $9.8 billion that you said going cost to replace, you stated that you have a cabinet submission prepared, right? And I don't expect, as the Minister of Finance said yesterday, recovery period is not the 4 or 6 weeks after, but it is what time frame do you see the sector itself getting back to some normalcy where production is concerned?
Well,
If we respond efficiently.
if we respond efficiently, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at a minimum of, from my econometrics,
Somebody has to say it so that the mic can.
Saying 3 months up to 9 months, depending on the crops we're talking about.
3 to 9 months.
For most of the crops that are most badly affected, the vegetables and the condiments, 3 months.
3
up,
months, yes. All right. So come down into December, really, we should be seeing with more, with if not all crop groups. Yeah, okay.
all right, so that's for vegetables. For the infrastructure, Mr. Chairman, it's going to take a little bit longer, especially if greenhouse infrastructure was destroyed. So I would say within a year, year and a half, we expect to see those back up running and in full production, especially for the installation of, you know, the kind of irrigation systems, the kind of things that would have been destroyed. But the crop, cash crops, is a quick recovery process. So that's what we anticipate. If I continue with the questions, accountability, transparency, yeah, I would have addressed that. Chicken farmers and slaughter. Chicken farmers can't slaughter, no storage. What are the plans for small chicken farmers? Our plan now is to get them back into production quickly, and I've indicated what we have started doing. For those who actually have meat, as long as it's stored in good condition, I believe that the task force here would now be aware of that, and we have responded in a similar situation already, and we can organize a response. What we typically do is get the distributors of meat, yes, to get into an arrangement with the local chicken producer, and they will take that meat.
Well,
when we were doing the buyback program,
Yes, I think part of the issue that we have as MPs, Member Morrison, is that since burial, those areas that have no electricity, a lot of them would have lost the meat. And during the hurricane, I mean, I remember one of my constituents saying she took her 60 chickens and put it in her living room and then put it back out once the hurricane passed. But it's not everyone that is that lucky. Seeing no electricity, the wetness and everything would have lost, but that's their livelihood. Even though electricity may not come back in some of those areas, how is it that through the Ministry of Agriculture can we get those, because they are as important to their families as the man who is planting the sweet potato and the carrot? How can we get back those persons into chicken production? Because in many of those communities, they are the main suppliers of chicken meat. And when school gets back into session, they are the ones who supply the schools with these chicken meats. So how is it? Is there any program within the ministry? One was announced was for the large farmers, but what about those small farmers that will do a 50 or 100 chickens, or 200 chickens? Is there any program that can assist those farmers?
yes, Mr. Chairman. That's where our program is focused, you know.
Oh, tell us more about
remember now that the small farmers, as you call them, we call local domestic producers, non-commercial producers. They make up 40% of the marketplace. Which one? So they make up 40% of the thing. So we are very, very careful to ensure that the role that they play is not impacted for any long time. Otherwise, we're going to have some destabilization.
So where do we send them? Because we are getting requests as MPs for chickens.
All right. So the request should come through the RADA or come into the task force. The information that we put out there about the lines to call, we want that information in. Once we get that information in, and we have already started, distribution of both feed and chickens along with our partners to farmers. We want to step that up.
I can attest that Member Morrison will get more information than the RADA officers will get at this point in time. Yeah? So as a member of parliament, I don't have access to the task force. When my office gets the information of these chicken farmers who would come to our office for help, we should pass that information on to our RADA parish office.
Yes.
Okay.
And it should reach to us, and we will plan accordingly. There are 2 levels of support out there. 50 chickens, 4 bags of feed. 80 chickens, 8 bags of feed.
Yeah.
We have the different, based on the category.
Which is the ratio we usually
that you fall in. So that's how we'll be responding.
P.S. I am very perplexed. I'm looking at the document here. Hurricane Beryl, damage assessment, and we're looking at the farm roads, the rehabilitation. And I think, it's in the wake of Beryl, minor repairs that will be done. The parish of St. Catherine, northeastern St. Catherine, my constituency, arguably the worst hit, especially in the Mount Industry Division. You may ask the RADA office in St. Catherine about my own constituency, the number of farm roads there, the high levels of production. Why is it that I am not seeing how was this constituted? I am going to submit to you, PS, that this is incomplete, and I'll be happy to make a submission of the roads, the farm roads in St. Catherine Northeastern that have been even worsened subsequent to the passage of Hurricane Beryl. But this is incomplete.
I'll be more than happy to get your listing, Madam MP. As a matter of fact, I did indicate that even as we sit here,
yes,
assessment is still ongoing.
Yes.
And so the farm road was one of the areas that I identify as incomplete,
yes,
from the get-go. So that the RADA engineering team is still out there trying to think. Because some of the areas have been inaccessible, as you know. We have been using the equipment that is available to us to clear those far farm roads and inner community, deep rural roads to be able to do some of the assessments. So
So who do I need to talk to, PS?
Huh?
Who do I need to talk to?
Miss, they're right here. Through the RADA office, but the RADA people are right here, Mr. Colin Henry, and the executive director, Miss Marina Young. But the RADA extension officer can submit. You can submit through there, or you can send to us directly.
Thank you.
Submit through parish office will be more efficient. Hold on.
I would.
The line. Go ahead. Your mic is live.
All right. Just for, I think.
And members,
Correction.
members, we have less than 20 minutes,
Correction.
so we need to.
Yes, Chair. Just for correction, number 27 on the list of road, I think you have merged 2 different roads together. Carty Hill is different from Carty Town. Right, so it's 2 different roads. Just want to point it out that
All right.
Carty Hill is one and Carty Town is another.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead, member.
Just a quick comment, PS. The concern raised by my colleague here from Northeast St. Catherine. In a case of disaster, for example, your team can't get to everywhere very quickly, block road or whatever it is, even their own personal family situation may restrict them from doing. As an MP, for example, first thing I do is I have people in every community. First thing I do, I make a call, because they're on the ground. I'm not there. Give me a feedback. What's the damage around you? So in 2 tools, I can get at least a preliminary feedback, and that will assist you. So I'm saying that in situations like this going forward, the MPs are another source of quick response. It's not that you're going to make any definitive decision on the information provided, but at least it provides you with a more clearer picture of what you have to make your preliminary assessment going forward. So that's just a suggestion. We are here. We have connection in probably quicker than you can get, for good reasons too, as you will appreciate.
Agreed, member.
You're finished?
There
or
was
is-
one question about the fishing. How is fishing sector being assisted and how to access support? Yes. Dr. Bellamy is here. And I would hope he would be able to just handle that for me. Chairman, Dr. Bellamy.
For the question, how can your fishers? Well, we have extension officers, compliance officers, and data officers working in your area. I personally was there, sir. I'm just asking you if you have any fishers who have not been approached as yet. Please let them reach out to the officers. We share the same number with the ministry, and it is coordinated through the task force or response. And also not to duplicate efforts, sir. If you are doing anything in your area, please let us know so we can spread the limited resources better in your area for you. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to what Dr. Bellamy has said, just to fine tune, we have dispatched all our extension and compliance officers across the island. I did indicate in my opening remarks that we have a comprehensive assessment of the damage that's been done to the individual fishers, and we have established contracts already with the suppliers that are going to be supplying the mesh. It's just waiting on the funds to be able to deal with that. There are some private sector entities that choose fisheries as the focus of their effort, and Dr. Bellamy is in touch with them. And so far, in terms of monies allocated, I think we're up to about, how much million, Dr. Bellamy? 13 million so far in order to assist. And a lot of them are saying they directly want to ensure that fishers go back to sea, so they're talking about wire mesh and stuff like that, which is the main area of concern. So for everybody listening, I just want to repeat the number that is to be called if you can't reach anybody else. This number is there, 888 Ask RADA, which is 888-275-7232. That's separate and apart from the extensive listing of officers, their phone numbers, emails that we have published, in addition to the ministry's contact line that we have put out there, and all the complementary extension officers from the different areas. There was one more point that was asked here about banana farmers. Yes. How support will be provided. And we have the executive director for the banana board, Ms. Coney.
Afternoon, everybody. The banana farmers are always prepared for hurricanes. 40 miles per hour winds affect bananas. And in this particular damage, within a day, when we did what you say, we have people in the area, and we got an overall preliminary assessment. We thought it was about 90%, but we have since done a more detailed assessment, and it is about 74%. Reduced from what we had, but significant damage, no doubt. That equates to about $2.1 billion.
2.1
billion.
Billion.
Yes. And
yes.
yes. And what we have done, the banana board has a banana industry catastrophe fund. Not very big, and not many farmers register, but we have assessed all of those farmers, about 79 of them. 73 of them were affected, way above the 50% catastrophe level. We have assessed them. We have had our meetings. We have allocated the committee has allocated, and we have since done the vouchers for the farmers to get and to come back to us with their supplier of note, and we usually give fertilizers as compensation. So we are off the board with that. We do have a commitment from the Ministry of Agriculture for the wider community of banana farmers. Commercial banana farmers is about 1,500 hectares, and about 1,200 of those were affected seriously. We hope to use that fund to give what is the most important stimulant to getting back production, which is fertilizers. $40 million sounds like a lot, but it's just 2% of what we really need, and about 20% of the fertilizer need that it will be required over a 9-month period. We have already put systems in place to allocate. We know the farmers, we know the areas, we know the volume that we have, and we have done the allocations. We will use the same methodology that we're using for the catastrophe fund in order to ensure that we allocate as quickly as possible. For bananas, you must do your resuscitation within days, within weeks, 4 weeks at most, and this is why we move as fast as we do. PS says, you know, we think bananas is everything and we want everything, but that is the nature of the crop. But it will come back in 9 months if we do everything that we say. I've been on the radio talking about preparing the roots and preparing. If we do, we come back in 9 months. But remember, it's a crop that stays with you ongoing. You reap every week, you reap every other week. And that's the nature of it. So we are, so we have assessed, we are working, and we are putting the systems in place to assist the farmers as fast as possible.
Chairman, I want to suggest, for the committee's sake, that we schedule a sort of review update another 3 months or so.
Oh, we will, after we come off the summer break.
Yeah, it will be by then.
Yes, but as I said, this was a preliminary, so we can know where we are now.
No, in light of the report
yes,
about the recovery
reasonable.
framework.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think just one final question I see here which need to be responded to. And Mr. Giles is here from the NIC. I think it concerned the interaction with the engagement of the JPS in respect of the...
I think you basically had answered me.
Okay.
I'd asked a question whether or not the listing was made available for JPS.
That which was as far
Perhaps
as-
Mr. Giles could indicate how responsive the JPS has been to this information provided to them, knowing how critical irrigation infrastructure is to the agricultural sector.
Well, Chair and Member, I would say they are partially responsive. Some of the pumps that are out, since I'm here, I've gotten a call. That's the one in Clarendon. But the area that is most affected is St. Elizabeth. The response is not what we would have liked. So that is the area. We are in contact with them daily to see.
Mr. Giles, it is not as you would like. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is the response like in that
I would say
critical area?
6.
6? 6, you'll fail somebody at 6, right?
No. Well, it depends on the marking scheme.
But depend on the
Remember,
scheme.
I'll protect Mr. Giles on that. You turn off your mic, Mr. Giles.
I won't. No, please, Mr. Chairman, don't turn off Mr. Giles' mic at all. But I have a follow-up clarification for him. You mentioned about that particular area where you give the 6 out of 10 grade. But on a scale of 1 to 10 overall, right, how pleased are you with the response?
Member, I believe JPS, they were responsive to the NIC. Based on what I would have seen and the areas that we got on stream quickly, I would say they are very responsive.
How many of your infrastructure was down? Pumps, and how many you have?
No, all the pumps were down. But all the pumps were
How
down.
many? I don't know what.
We have over 69 pumps.
69.
And we have over 70% now are back online. And we're going
70% back.
Yes.
Okay.
You have any timeline from the JPS when that remaining portion will be back up?
Well, with the ones that have been restored today, maybe we're about just 80% now. So the critical ones are the one in St. Elizabeth. And once those are up, we are in good stead.
But still, for completion, you have any working timeline from JPS?
Well, we are
Because your farmers need to plan.
Yes, we are in constant contact with them daily. As a matter of fact, we have spoken to them. They say they are giving us assurance that we'll see what they can do for St. Elizabeth. I'm hoping that by sometime this week, we'll have even 1 or 2 of those pumps back.
Mr. Giles, you're giving me a lot of hope, but you're not giving me the projections.
Because they have not given me...
So they have not given you a timeline?
Yeah, well, say that then.
Yeah.
We don't expect you to fix it, you know. You need them to fix it for you.
Right. Lastly, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hunter. The preliminary assessment of 10 billion, 10.25 billion, because soon after the hurricane we heard of $10 billion. Is this your final assessment yet so far, or can you give us an idea of where we are in the national assessment of damaged roads?
Okay, that figure was presented to the country by the Prime Minister a week ago. We have since moved to another phase in our recovery effort. And the Prime Minister would have announced the program for cleanup and drain cleaning, which is what we are concentrating on now. The final assessment of the damage continues. So this figure holds until we have further and better particulars.
You have a time frame of getting some of these roads back into drivable conditions?
Okay, so the financial provision that has been made relates largely to cleaning up the debris which has been accumulated as a result of clearing the roads and to do some preemptive drain cleaning. The program does not at this time anticipate any significant work on the roads. It doesn't. If and when that need manifests itself in a very persuasive way, we will look at it, but as indicated in the communique from the Prime Minister, we are largely concentrating on drain cleaning and cleanup, and drain cleaning motivated by the need to address the possibility of mosquito infestation and other such perils.
And I mean, reason why I asked the question, which was a concern yesterday in Parliament, and the Minister of Finance announced that an additional $5 billion will be given towards the recovery, namely Ministry of Economic Growth, I think it was Labour and Agriculture, and seeing the quantum in the damage and for replacement, as Minister of Agriculture mentioned, $6 billion, but $9 billion to bring it back to where it's at. I think it is for the nation to understand that there is going to be a longer recovery period than some will expect. So even the roadways that have been damaged in itself, that is going to take a time for it to. But it would be good for us to have an understanding on the programs and what next that will be coming. So you're dealing with the cleanup in collaboration with the municipal councils, and you're dealing with drain cleaning, those that have been blocked by debris. What is the next program that you'll embark on moving forward in the next instance?
Well, obviously, the next item in a priority ranking for us would be to improve, as you have indicated, the drivability of the roads, which will involve.
Do you have a figure for that? Do you have a figure for that? That will.
Yes, that was in the initial $4.5 billion. That was in the initial estimate.
So you need $4.5 billion to bring these roads back up to drivable conditions.
well, to enhance the driving
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
People can drive now.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
4.5. All right, members, do you have any further questions?
This one, yes, we still have a couple of minutes. PS, Madam PS, the housing response. I was perusing the minister's report. I would never get this exact detail. Those totally damaged houses. And I'm thinking mainly of places like in St. Elizabeth and those hard-hit areas. Some years ago, there was a joint government Food for the Poor program to construct houses. And there was an arrangement made where, Food for the Poor bring in material and need not go through the detail of it. And it seems to have worked pretty efficiently in providing shelter solution in a short time. Has the ministry given consideration to revisiting that approach, given the reasonable success that we have had, particularly for those persons who have had total demolition or destruction of their housing units? And secondly, outside of the emergency situation, as it relates to shelter, for needy persons, of course, is any consideration given by the ministry for, resurrecting that program, which, to my knowledge, unless there's information to the contrary, has been very effective and efficient in responding to needs of some of our less fortunate Jamaicans.
Member Jackson, I am aware of the program, but the program was not through my ministry. So I can't speak with authority on it. We have had some preliminary discussions with Food for the Poor, and the coming days and weeks will determine how things unfold. As I said before, I know that they received some supplies in terms of lumber and zinc and so forth. I'm not aware it's housing kits, and so that is why they're helping some of the affected households, 20 so far, to putting back their roofs. I think when Food for the Poor had that program, when we had that program in collaboration with them, Food for the Poor actually had a housing kit, if you recall, that I don't know if it was a donor or what, because they do rely on international support, and they had quite a number of houses on hand that they could help persons to erect quite quickly. But the discussions are ongoing, member. Every and anything is on the table.
Because again, it was part of the whole housing shelter response. The Food for the Poor element is one, and I remember there was the Hurricane Gilbert, which was housing in my own constituency. There are communities that subsequently emerged, started out with the immediate housing shelter, and then people were given access to the area the lands that they were put on, that they could build more lasting structure. But it was done for that purpose of immediate resolution of a crisis, not part of the long-term housing solution in those Gilbert housing.
Member Jackson, we have member PS here from Economic Growth, which deals with housing. So it's probably a suggestion that she could.
Again, the collaboration could see. Because it worked for me, I recall it, and they built reasonably good houses, and they were resilient in that they were built in such a way that they could withstand future hurricane. And two, Chairman, is that the model that Food for the Poor employed, they utilized skilled personnel from the various communities. So it wasn't all centralized. Though centrally coordinated from Food for the Poor, it was implemented through the local communities, utilizing local skills and materials.
There we have PS, you too.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. I've heard your comment, member, and I've listened to the response from my colleague, PS. I just want to say that we in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, we have a $330 million special needs response that is going to be utilized for burial. And so members, along with the grants that you would have previously received, and we continue to process those very efficiently, I would want to think. Yes, member? Yes, and so we continue to receive those responses. We're looking now and doing the assessment as to those parishes, for example, St. Elizabeth, and we want to see those responses coming in. Yeah. But we do have those sums that are there in our budget for that special housing response.
Just finally though, before you, because I'm not even sure which project that one is. That is in response to burial itself, and how does one get on that program for?
Well, as it is now, persons write us, the MPs write us too, because we are. Well, you would know about our new social housing program, but this is in addition to. Right.
All right. Okay.
So, member, feel free to call. I'm quite accessible. So, yes.
Just lastly for Ministry of Labour, because you have also a housing grant, is this accessible to everyone or only for those who have been assessed? The 150, the 150,000, 400,000 and 50,000 that was announced by the minister yesterday.
It's a grant, Chairman.
Yes.
And we're not going to specify how persons use it. Of course, we would hope that they're going to use it to rebuild their houses. But you're calling it a housing grant. I'm just being cautious with referring to it as a housing grant. What we, at the end of the exercise, Chairman, we will have the names and location of all the totally destroyed houses, which we would, the intention as was, and maybe this is so recent because these discussions were like 2 days ago. The expectation is that we'll be collaborating with PS Arlene Ministry to identify some out of that group who are the most vulnerable and most needy for complete housing solutions.
Okay, but these persons would have had to be already assessed by the ministry.
Yes.
That
is my understanding.
And this is why at the start we mentioned the coordinated approach, because you have many departments, agencies, the ministries themselves that duplicate roles in many instances. And when we ask for resources and we hear that the budget tight, we want to ensure, and I think it's the responsibility of this committee itself, to ensure that it is used efficiently and effectively for those who are the greatest in need. And that we avoid the duplication. So in that discussion that we had about sharing of information, it is not for us to just get data that we just use willy-nilly, but how it is that we don't duplicate what the ministry has been efficiently been doing. So even though we go on a summer break, and we are going to prepare the report so that we can share it with the various ministers and hopefully the Prime Minister itself to see how it is that we can tighten up on some of the things that we have started to do. So let me thank the PSs and their team for short notice and for giving us the update. And later down in another few months, we will reconvene to get a further update so that we can at least appraise ourselves and the country on where we are. Thank you very much. Yes, members, item 7, any other business? We are scheduled to have a meeting next week, Wednesday, which we will have Ministry of Finance, and starting looking at the census, and then we'll close off for the summer break. And then we will definitely, members, go and have a heavy schedule going down into the summer period, into the Christmas period. So we'll also ask Ministry of Local Government for a report, since they were not able to make it today. They can give us a written report on what they have started. So, date of the next meeting is what, 31st? 31st of July, here at 10 a.m. The meeting is adjourned, members. Thank you very much.
Watch the trend, pick up the trend. This are the trend for all the youths them. Watch the trend, big up the trend. TREND. Big up the trend for education, teachers and the students. A fully bright future, yes, that are the new trend. Better governance, partner with the parents. Follow the big trend, elevate the youth them. Improve the schools, track performance, access and attendance. From infant, primary to university students. Turn up the skills training, full steam we are giving. Follow the big trend, elevate the schools, yeah. Watch the trend, pick up the trend. This are the trend for all the youths them. Watch the trend, big up the trend. TREND. For more technology, yes, and better planning, quality education, that's what should be trending. From principals to EOs, everybody winning. Follow the ministry, we're changing the system. Watch the trend, pick up the trend.
This is Trend, Transforming Education for National Development, a program designed by the Ministry of Education and Youth to transform Jamaica's education system for a brighter tomorrow.
Jesus, you're amazing, 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 amazing. Oh God, amazing, amazing, amazing. You are amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Lord.